Meta shifts gears, Zuckerberg unveils Community Notes model discontinuing U.S. fact-checking program amidst growing scrutiny. On February 14, 2025, Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, announced a significant shift in its content moderation strategy. CEO Mark Zuckerberg revealed that the company will discontinue its third-party fact-checking program, which had been in place since 2016, and replace it with a new community-driven initiative called Community Notes. This move comes in response to a cultural tipping point observed after recent elections and increasing scrutiny regarding content moderation practices. Key changes announced. 1. Discontinuation of fact-checking. Meta's existing fact-checking program, which involved independent organizations reviewing content for misinformation, is being phased out. Critics of the program argued it fostered bias and censorship, particularly concerning political discourse. Zuckerberg stated that the program often resulted in excessive censorship and mistakes, which he claims stifled free expression. 2. Introduction of Community Notes. The new Community Notes system aims to empower users to contribute context and information on potentially misleading posts, drawing on a broader range of perspectives to counteract bias. Unlike the previous system, Meta will not curate or write these notes, marking a significant shift towards decentralization. 3. Revisions to content moderation policies. Alongside the discontinuation of fact-checking, Meta will revise its moderation policies to lessen restrictions on contentious topics such as immigration and gender identity. The company intends to refocus its automated systems on severe violations like terrorism and child exploitation, while relying on user reports for less severe issues. 4. Political content and user preferences. Zuckerberg indicated a renewed focus on promoting civic content across Meta's platforms. After years of diminishing political posts due to user feedback, the company plans to personalize the delivery of such content, allowing users interested in political discourse to receive more of it. 5. Operational changes. The trust and safety and content moderation teams will be relocated from California to Texas, signaling a strategic shift in Meta's operational focus. Timeline of events. 2016, launch of Meta's independent fact-checking program in response to concerns about misinformation. 2021, the company begins reducing the visibility of civic content due to user feedback. 2025, Zuckerberg announces the end of the fact-checking program and the introduction of Community Notes alongside major changes to content moderation policies. Common key points across sources. Shift to free expression. Across various reports, the emphasis on prioritizing free speech and reducing censorship emerged as a central theme behind these changes. Community engagement. The transition to a community-driven model is highlighted as a significant point of convergence, with the belief that this approach could be less prone to bias. Differences between sources. Focus on criticism. Different news outlets vary in their focus on the political implications of the shift. For instance, NBC News delves into the backlash from conservative politicians regarding prior moderation efforts, while Al Jazeera emphasizes operational and policy changes without extensive political context. Zuckerberg's statements. Some sources provide a detailed account of Zuckerberg's rationale and the historical context of the fact-checking program, while others summarize the implications more broadly. Conclusion. Meta's transition towards a community-focused content moderation model represents a significant pivot in its approach to misinformation and user engagement, reflecting broader societal tensions regarding free speech and censorship. The effectiveness of the Community Notes system and the company's ability to balance free expression with responsible moderation will be closely monitored in the coming months. In summary, Meta's announcement marks a critical juncture in the evolving landscape of social media content moderation, aiming to address criticisms surrounding bias while fostering a more participatory environment for users. The implications of these changes will likely resonate throughout the industry, influencing other platforms and potentially shaping the future of online discourse. Meta's recent announcement regarding its shift in content moderation strategy unveils several counterintuitive aspects that challenge conventional perceptions of social media management. Here are the key counterintuitive elements identified from the content. 1. Discontinuation of fact-checking as a move toward free expression. Traditionally, fact-checking programs are seen as necessary safeguards against misinformation. However, Meta's decision to discontinue its third-party fact-checking program, which aimed to provide credible oversight, is framed by Zuckerberg as a commitment to free speech. The idea that removing established checks on misinformation could enhance free expression is paradoxical. It suggests that allowing unverified content may somehow create a more open dialogue despite the potential for increased misinformation. 2. Community Notes versus expert verification. The introduction of the Community Notes system, which relies on user-generated content to provide context on posts, contrasts sharply with the previous reliance on expert fact-checkers. This shift implies that the collective input of the community can be more reliable or less biased than expert assessments. The idea that laypersons might provide a more nuanced understanding of complex topics than trained professionals challenges the long-held belief that expertise is essential in evaluating truthfulness. 3. Increased mistakes in moderation leading to fewer restrictions. Zuckerberg acknowledges that Meta's complex moderation systems have led to numerous mistakes, which he claims stifled legitimate discourse. The counterintuitive conclusion drawn is that fewer automated restrictions and less rigorous oversight could somehow lead to a healthier online environment, even if it means allowing more misinformation and harmful content to proliferate. This approach suggests a trade-off between the risk of misinformation and the value of free expression, which may not align with public expectations of responsible content management. 4. Political content personalization as a response to user feedback. The prior reduction of political content was a response to user complaints about stress and negativity associated with political discourse. However, the reversal of this policy to reintroduce political content, albeit in a more personalized manner, implies that users may desire engagement with contentious topics despite previous feedback. This shift suggests a complexity in user preferences where the desire for a less stressful experience coexists with a yearning for political engagement, challenging the assumption that users want to avoid politics altogether. 5. Operational changes reflecting political dynamics. The decision to relocate Meta's trust and safety and content moderation teams from California to Texas represents a shift influenced by political dynamics. This move might indicate an attempt to align more closely with a political climate that favors less stringent regulation of speech. The counterintuitive implication here is that operational decisions tied to moderation practices can be swayed by political winds, which could undermine the perceived neutrality of a platform that claims to prioritize free expression. 6. Censorship versus user reports. The new strategy emphasizes reliance on user reports for less severe violations rather than automated systems, suggesting that community engagement might be more effective than algorithmic moderation. This approach implies that users may have a better sense of what constitutes acceptable content than a system designed to filter it. However, it also raises the question of whether this could lead to an increase in biased reporting or mob mentality, where certain viewpoints are suppressed through coordinated user actions rather than objective standards. 7. Limited government engagement to promote free speech. Zuckerberg's assertion that collaborating with the incoming Trump administration could bolster global free speech initiatives is counterintuitive. It posits that aligning with a politically charged administration could somehow enhance Meta's commitment to free expression despite the potential risks of politicizing content moderation further. This suggests a complex interplay between corporate interests and political affiliations, where freedom of speech is contingent upon political alignment rather than an unwavering principle. In summary, Meta's transition to a community-driven moderation model introduces several counterintuitive ideas about misinformation management, user engagement, and the balance between freedom of expression and responsible moderation. These elements challenge existing frameworks and raise questions about the future landscape of social media discourse. Meta's recent announcement regarding the shift from a third-party fact-checking program to a community-driven system termed Community Notes marks a pivotal moment in the company's approach to content moderation. While many commentators have discussed the implications of this change in broad terms, several nuanced aspects are significant but may be easily overlooked. Here are some of those elements along with their implications. 1. The role of community notes in contextualizing misinformation. The transition to community notes is significant because it democratizes the process of addressing misinformation. Unlike the previous system, which relied on independent fact-checkers with potentially varying biases, community notes allows users from diverse backgrounds to contribute context to posts. This shift raises questions about the efficacy and reliability of community-sourced information. The potential for misinformation to spread remains, as community members may not have the expertise or resources to effectively verify claims. Significance: this model reflects a growing trend toward user-generated content and community involvement in information dissemination, but it also risks legitimizing false information if the community fails to self-regulate effectively. The reliance on a broader range of perspectives could lead to a dilution of accountability, as users may prioritize personal beliefs over factual accuracy. 2. Impact on political discourse and content moderation. Zuckerberg's emphasis on restoring political content to user feeds is notable, especially after years of reducing its visibility based on user feedback. This shift suggests a response to a perceived demand for political engagement among users, particularly in light of recent elections. Significance: the implications of reintroducing political content are profound. While it may foster increased political discourse, it could also exacerbate polarization and lead to the spread of misinformation during election cycles. The challenge will be balancing free expression with the responsibility to mitigate harm caused by divisive and potentially misleading political narratives. 3. Operational changes and their implications. Meta's decision to relocate its trust and safety and content moderation teams from California to Texas signals a broader shift in corporate culture and operational strategy. This move could reflect an attempt to align with a more conservative political climate, which may influence the company's approach to content moderation. Significance: the relocation could lead to changes in how content moderation policies are developed and enforced, potentially prioritizing free speech in ways that may not adequately address the risks associated with misinformation and hate speech. This operational shift may also signal to other tech companies a new norm in content moderation practices influenced by political considerations. 4. Challenges of implementation and user experience. Zuckerberg acknowledges the complexity of moderation systems and the mistakes made under the previous model. The shift to a less strict enforcement policy and reliance on user reports could lead to an increase in harmful content going unchecked. Significance: as Meta experiments with a more lenient approach to content moderation, it faces the challenge of maintaining a safe environment for users while fostering open dialogue. The balance between allowing free expression and preventing harm is delicate, and failures in this area could lead to user backlash and calls for stricter regulation. 5. Historical context of misinformation and moderation. The announcement occurs against the backdrop of ongoing debates about the role of social media in amplifying misinformation, particularly in the wake of significant political events. Zuckerberg's acknowledgement of the previous fact-checking system's failures underscores the complexity of moderating content in a politically charged environment. Significance: understanding the historical context of these changes is crucial. The evolution of Meta's policies reflects broader societal tensions regarding free speech, misinformation, and the responsibilities of tech companies. Recognizing these trends can inform future discussions about the role of social media in democratic discourse. 6. Potential for bias in community notes. While the community notes system aims to mitigate bias by incorporating diverse perspectives, there is a risk that it may inadvertently perpetuate existing biases within the user base. The system's design relies on the assumption that users will engage in good faith and prioritize factual accuracy. Significance: this potential for bias raises important questions about the effectiveness of crowdsourced moderation. If certain viewpoints dominate the conversation, the system could reinforce echo chambers rather than provide a balanced view, thereby undermining the goal of fostering informed discourse. Conclusion: Meta's shift towards a community-driven content moderation model embodies a complex interplay between free expression, misinformation, and the responsibilities of social media platforms. While the emphasis on user engagement and political content reflects a responsiveness to user desires, it also introduces significant risks and challenges that require careful management. The effectiveness of the Community Notes system, alongside the broader implications of these changes, will be critical to monitor in the coming months as Meta navigates this new landscape. As discussions around misinformation and content moderation continue to evolve, the outcomes of these changes will likely have lasting repercussions for social media's role in public discourse and democratic engagement. 1. Discontinuation of fact-checking program. Meta's decision to end its independent fact-checking program marks a significant shift in its content moderation strategy. This change is driven by criticisms of the program, which many viewed as biased and overly censorious, particularly regarding political speech. Zuckerberg's assertion that the program led to excessive censorship reflects a growing trend among social media platforms to reassess their roles as content arbiters. This pivot raises important questions about the implications for misinformation on these platforms, as the removal of fact-checking could lead to an increase in the spread of false information without the checks previously in place. 2. Introduction of Community Notes. The new Community Notes system represents a move towards a more decentralized content moderation approach, allowing users to contribute context and information on potentially misleading posts. This model, similar to X's formerly Twitter approach, is designed to mitigate perceived biases inherent in third-party fact-checkers. However, while community-driven moderation may democratize the process, it also raises concerns about the potential for misinformation to persist unchecked, as the reliability of contributions can vary widely among users. Analyzing the effectiveness of this model over time will be crucial in determining its success in curbing misinformation while promoting free expression. 3. Shifts in content moderation policies. Meta's revised content moderation policies aim to reduce restrictions on contentious topics such as immigration and gender identity. By focusing on severe violations like terrorism and child exploitation, the company is shifting the burden of moderation to user reports for less severe issues. This strategic change indicates a broader trend in social media towards prioritizing user agency in content moderation. However, the effectiveness of relying on user reports, which can vary in reliability and may be influenced by individual biases, poses significant challenges. The potential for increased misinformation or harassment in less strictly moderated areas necessitates careful monitoring of these evolving policies. For the personalized political content delivery, Zuckerberg's announcement to personalize the delivery of civic content marks a return to promoting political discussions on Meta's platforms after years of suppression. This shift aligns with user feedback, signaling a desire for more political engagement. By tailoring content based on user preferences, Meta aims to create a more engaging environment for political discourse. However, this approach also poses risks, as it may reinforce echo chambers and further polarize users by presenting them with content that aligns with their existing beliefs. This raises critical questions about the balance between encouraging political engagement and fostering a healthy, informed public discourse on social media platforms. 1. The dismissal of the Fairness Doctrine. 1987. The Fairness Doctrine was a policy introduced by the Federal Communications Commission (FCC) in 1949 that required broadcasters to present controversial issues of public importance in a manner that was honest, equitable, and balanced. In 1987, the FCC abolished the Fairness Doctrine, arguing that its presence limited the free speech rights of broadcasters and impeded the development of diverse viewpoints. This shift led to an increase in partisan media outlets and a significant change in how political discourse was conducted in the media landscape. 2. The rise of the Internet and user-generated content in the 2000s. With the advent of the Internet and platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, traditional media's control over information dissemination began to decline. This shift allowed individuals to produce and share their own content without the gatekeeping of established media outlets. As a result, this democratization of content creation led to both positive and negative outcomes, including an explosion of diverse voices and perspectives, but also challenges with misinformation and the spread of harmful content. The evolution of user-generated content mirrors Meta's shift toward a community-driven moderation model. 3. The Cambridge Analytica scandal 2016. This major controversy involved the unauthorized harvesting of personal data from millions of Facebook users by Cambridge Analytica, a political consulting firm. The scandal raised significant concerns about privacy, data protection, and the influence of social media on elections. In response, Facebook faced intense scrutiny and criticism regarding its data privacy practices and content moderation policies, leading to calls for greater regulation of social media companies. The fallout from this incident prompted Meta, then Facebook, to reconsider its content policies and moderation strategies. Echoing the current shift towards community-led initiatives to address misinformation. The future outlook for Meta's content moderation strategy following the discontinuation of its U.S. fact-checking program and the introduction of the Community Notes model presents several predictions regarding the social media landscape, user engagement, and policy implications. 1. Increased user engagement and participation. With the move towards a community-driven moderation model, we can expect a surge in user engagement on Meta's platforms. Community Notes will likely encourage users to participate actively in discussions about content accuracy, thus fostering a sense of ownership and responsibility among users. This decentralized approach may lead to more diverse perspectives and greater engagement with civic content as users feel empowered to contribute to the dialogue. 2. Potential for misinformation increase. While the intent is to enhance free expression, the removal of independent fact-checking could result in a rise in misinformation. Users may post misleading information without the checks that a fact-checking program provided. The effectiveness of the Community Notes system in curbing misinformation will hinge on user participation and the ability of the community to accurately assess and label content. If participation is low or biased, misinformation could proliferate, complicating the information environment on Meta's platforms. 3. Political landscape implications. The decision to promote more civic content and reduce restrictions on political discourse could significantly affect the political landscape on social media. As Meta reintroduces political content, it may influence public opinion and voter behavior, particularly as the U.S. gears up for future elections. This could lead to an even more polarized environment, as users may encounter heightened political rhetoric and potentially divisive content. 4. Challenges in moderation and censorship. Meta's shift to focus on high-severity violations while lessening automated moderation for less severe content may result in challenges. Although this approach aims to reduce mistakes, it could lead to inconsistent enforcement of policies, as user reports will be the primary means of addressing less severe issues. This reliance on user reports may create disparities in how different types of content are treated, potentially leading to accusations of bias or favoritism. 5. Operational changes and strategic shifts. Relocating trust and safety teams from California to Texas may signal a broader strategic shift within Meta. This move could be an attempt to align the company's operations more closely with a less regulated environment, potentially leading to more lenient content policies. This shift could attract a different user demographic and influence the overall culture of discourse on the platform. 6. Monitoring of Community Notes effectiveness. The success of the Community Notes model will be under scrutiny. Meta will need to monitor its effectiveness in providing reliable context and reducing misinformation. Transparency in how notes are created and rated will be crucial to building trust among users. If users perceive the system as biased or ineffective, it may undermine the credibility of the platform and lead to further calls for regulation. 7. Impact on competitor dynamics. Meta's changes could reshape the competitive landscape among social media platforms. As Meta adopts a more community-driven approach, it may draw users away from competitors like X, formerly Twitter, which has implemented similar systems. However, if users perceive Meta's approach as less effective in combating misinformation, they may migrate back to platforms with more robust fact-checking systems. 8. Global implications of free speech advocacy. Zuckerberg's emphasis on free speech may resonate globally, potentially positioning Meta as a champion of digital expression against increasing governmental censorship in various countries. This could lead to international repercussions as other nations grapple with the balance between free speech and regulation on social media. 9. Increased regulatory scrutiny. As Meta implements these changes, it may attract increased regulatory scrutiny from governments concerned about the spread of misinformation and the impact of social media on public discourse. The success of the Community Notes system will be critical in demonstrating Meta's commitment to responsible content management. Failure to address misinformation effectively could lead to calls for stricter regulations and oversight. 10. Evolution of digital discourse. Ultimately, Meta's shift could signify a broader evolution in how digital discourse is managed. As platforms experiment with different moderation models, we may see a trend towards more community involvement in content curation and moderation. This could lead to a shift in user expectations regarding the role of social media companies in managing information, paving the way for new norms in digital communication. In conclusion, Meta's transition to a community-driven content moderation model is poised to impact user engagement, misinformation dynamics, and the broader social media landscape. The effectiveness of these changes and their implications for free expression and responsible discourse will be critical areas to monitor in the coming years.